Hayes Valley is a lesser-known part of San Francisco that has recently gone through a rapid change. Featuring new art installations and street art from the creator of Obey, Shepard Fairey, along with the strange juxtaposition of old architecture and new tech, it has started to pave its own road in the city. Its businesses are one of a kind that include Clay, a trailer that merchants artistic clay, eatery, to Aether, an urban clothing store made out of refurbished car containers. Then there's Proxy. What used to be an overpass is now a public workout space and outdoor theater. I talked to a few locals to see how they felt about the changes to their home.
When I first started working here, Hayes Valley was quite a contrast to what you see walking around now. As you may know, Hayes Valley is kind of right next door to the Tenderloin district, and I feel like when I first came here, when I would walk through here coming to and from work, it was a lot more traits of the Tenderloin right here on these same little streets. So drug use, homelessness, just trash, broken bottles, your kind of everyday, economically impoverished area qualities. And that's slowly been changing, slowly but surely. Hayes Valley now, now it's still in this transition period out of what it was and out of what the Tenderloin is just a few blocks over, but it's made quite the progress. Now, there's the faces you see walking through Hayes Valley are different. There's a lot more, jewelry walking through Hayes Valley, if you will. There's a lot nicer cars parked in Hayes Valley. There's a lot more business opening. It seems to be a little hotbed for small business in San Francisco right now, which, is definitely a positive thing. But it's definitely pushing certain folks out and opening the gates for those with a little more cash.
What I really like about Hayes Valley is that it has become a central hub for arts and culture. You can go to places like the Norse Theater, where you can see really cool shows featuring smaller plays and sometimes even big comedians like Trevor Noah. It's a lot of fun. It's become like this big scene for music. You have things like SF Jazz, which showcases smaller artists, and even like some bigger artists that come in, and you have the San Francisco Symphony, which usually hosts black tie events and has much larger musical events as well.
Hi, my name is Lisa Orjana Sapandas. I've lived in the Bay Area for about a decade now. And in the past, I used to stroll by Hayes Valley to get to class or work, and I actually hated going there because of how gritty it was, and there was just a lot of homeless people and just looked really undesirable, kind of like a realistic view of how a city would look. And as time went by, I actually enjoy it now. It's just like drastic change. It's been gentrified, and like there's a lot of expensive boutiques now, and I think the tech industry made a huge difference. So usually when I like the nightlife, I usually don't go drinking there, but now every time I go by, it's very eye-catching because you see people hanging out, having a good time in the patio, and it makes me wonder, ooh, what's it like there? It's like popping, It's not as touristy, and it's like a lot more calm and laid back, but still like a nice area to hang out in. There's like lots of things you can do other than going to a bar. You can, have brunch or go shopping.
My name is Daniel Watson-Weller. I was born and raised on Page and Laguna, which is right on the cusp of, or now included in Hayes Valley. Growing up, it was the Western Addition or Lower Haight. Hayes Valley growing up was a kind of economically poor neighborhood. It was predominantly African American. It was dealing with a lot of gang violence and a lot of open drug use. And at the same time was kind of really close to the opera and the ballet. So you'd get this juxtaposition of people coming in to eat dinner and then leave, or people coming in to buy drugs and then leaving. The neighborhood had kind of 4 major housing projects that were anywhere from 3 to 5 stories tall. And those were areas that were very hard to police. So it created a lot of alternate ways of making a living. Hayes Valley has changed drastically. I spoke with my father a couple months ago, and we had a friend from out of town, and he described the neighborhood. He's like, "Oh, I live in Hayes Valley." And I was like, "Oh, you do? You live in fancy Hayes Valley now?" Because growing up, it wasn't Hayes Valley. So even the name and the inclusiveness and people wanting to be a part of this neighborhood has changed drastically. The residents have changed. The economic diversity has changed drastically. In the early 90s, they tore down almost all of the housing projects and built low-income housing, which is a one-story low-income housing, and that took the population and booted a lot of them out to Oakland and to South City. And so it created a much more desirable neighborhood in terms of less drug use, less gang violence. Yeah, so there was a freeway overpass that was both an exit and an on-ramp to 101 that quickly brought you to the Bay Bridge, brought you down to the South Bay. I remember hearing it. I could hear the traffic growing up. And in the 1989 earthquake, we had a massive earthquake, destroyed a lot of buildings and infrastructure within the whole Bay Area, and the overpass was one of those buildings or projects that was damaged beyond repair. So they had to tear it down and build a new on-ramp, but the neighborhood revolted at that idea. And so taking down the overpass and replacing it with Patricia's Green, which is a walkable outdoor green space, completely changed the neighborhood. And it completely gave accessibility to an area that brought the neighbors out. And so people could be out of their homes and explore the neighborhood, and made it so restaurants could move in and feel safe and not have any of those issues of being underneath a freeway. Like, there's not very many trendy neighborhoods that are under a freeway, but there's a lot of neighborhoods with green spaces that are super trendy and can succeed and thrive.